You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Rapoff.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour, presented to you at a special day and time, Saturday matinee. I'm Joe Mays, and sitting here with me is my co-host, Justin Rapoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Different day and time for the show this week, different day and time for the game next week.
Yeah, everything about this I don't like. Saturday to Saturday, it's just not good. I don't like it.
Well, that's like you sent me a text with some telling me what you and the family were up to this morning, and it was normal fall family activities.
Right, normal.
And I replied, that is a great normal fall Saturday morning activity.
What isn't normal is playing a high school football game on a Saturday afternoon, unless you're Y missing. They have it built in. That's okay. But most schools don't play Saturday. I don't know. It's been an entire topic this whole off season, and
to be honest, I've mentioned more about it. I don't have that strong feelings about it personally, but
no. Well, honestly, from a
right.
completely selfish point of view, I cannot wait to shoot on Willie's camera body in the daylight.
Right.
Because just my God, it's going to be phenomenal.
Right.
I'm already getting better pictures in the low light, so shooting during daylight, I'm very excited about that. But I just don't like it throwing off this week's preparation for the game and then the following week's preparation for the Hempfield game, because after last night's results, that has become an even bigger game than we already expected, as Hempfield Black Knights beat Manheim Township, the Blue Streaks, who we talked about earlier, had beaten Harrisburg.
Right.
Harrisburg was currently today beating Cumberland Valley as we started the show. Last we knew.
As crazy as it is, I think Hempfield has beaten Township the last 2 years by a score of 17-14.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. But they were up 17-0 last night, and the Blue Streaks came back and actually had a chance to tie it on a field goal. That I'm not sure if it was missed or blocked or what happened, but they did not succeed in getting the 3 points to tie it, and Hempfield ended up winning. And we talked about before the show how absolutely wide open District 3 6A is. Honestly, I think there's 7 teams right now that could say should be the favorite to win the title,
which is kind of crazy because you think the field will be 8,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. So,
and maybe not. There's a chance, depending on how league play goes, some of those 7 might be on the verge of not making it. You know what I mean? Because you have a lot from the mid-pen. You probably have a handful from the mid-pen that would think they've got a shot.
Well,
including Harrisburg's going to be the top of everyone's list. I know they will have a loss already, but maybe not the top of everyone's list. But they're the reigning champ. But Cumberland Valley, despite being behind today, there's a whole bunch of teams there. You have Central York. York has a couple of losses, but they're schedule that they've played, and they've been a couple tough losses, and they have a bunch of guys, at key positions returning. But then you have the LL Berks, where you've got those teams. There's going to be a lot of jockeying for position the second half of the season here, and then kind of taking a look at how things will go from there.
Now, I know these aren't updated, and this is literally the first time I've looked at these all year. And this is the District 3 football power ratings, the rankings so far. And we just heard us say Cumberland Valley and Harrisburg are playing right now, and there have been some teams that have not updated for their Week 5 game. But as it stands, Cumberland Valley is the number 1, not surprising, as entering their game today, they were undefeated, and I believe they're the only undefeated team in District 3 6A. Hempfield was next, or is next, and they should stay there, may even jump to 1 if Cumberland Valley loses today, although Cumberland Valley has a pretty substantial lead, so I'm not sure how much they'll drop once their win or loss are entered there and Hempfield's win is entered. Manheim Township's loss has not been entered. Central York's win is there. Harrisburg is missing today's game. Wilson's win is in there. And I was going to say, my guess is the 8 seed or somewhere in the 7-8 range is going to end up being someone like Carlisle, and that's where they're sitting right now. Carlisle's at 6, but The Bulldogs 4-1 after last night's victory over Cedar Crest sit at 6th in the power rankings right now.
Yeah.
Which would set up a game against Township in the first round. Now, obviously, there's a lot of football left to be played.
Literally half yet.
Right, 5 games to go, and Wilson gets to play Township and Hempfield, who sits in front of them at the moment, yet this year. Also, Penn Manor sitting there at number 9 at 3-2. Wilson plays them the week after Hempfield. So Wilson's got an interesting schedule the rest of the way.
Right.
What's
good for our power rankings is that a bunch of teams that we have yet to play are in the top half of those 6A
right.
listings.
So you win, it's going to take care of itself.
On the other hand, half the teams we play, most of the teams we play, are in the top half of the 6A power rankings.
Yeah, or close to it.
Right.
And after we'll see when the official, after week 5 rankings come out, where Wilson sits and where the pending opponent sits. But huge games coming up. Obviously, this week we're going to talk about it, but probably don't need to talk much about it. Wilson, Mifflin, the big rivalry game. We are back in Shillington this year. Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock kickoff. The next week, hosting Hempfield, who had just beat Manheim Township. Then going to Millersville to play Penn Manor.
Which will be the first time we've left the county in a while.
In like 6 weeks. Then return home in week 9 to host McCaskey, followed by the week 10 final regular season game in Nessville at Manheim Township, which could possibly be for the section crown, depending on how things play out the rest of the way.
And district
significant district seating.
So hopefully not in the same boat as last year.
Right, where you have to win to get in.
We knew there were implications, but we weren't sure, it would depend on some other things, and it ended up being a win and you're in, and lose and you're done. So hopefully, obviously, we don't want to find ourselves in that situation, but a lot to kind of sort itself out here over the second half of the season.
Oh, for sure. So, let's dive into the Cedar Crest game right now. Let's do our housekeeping, house cleaning, whatever you want to call it here, and thank our sponsors first, and then we'll recap the game against Cedar Crest. And once again, the Bulldog Hour is presented by Mays Sandwich Shop, and we thank my dad, Bill Mays, for his support of the show since inception way back in July 2015. And also over the years now getting on board a few other people, families, and companies, including Mike Drago and MikeDragoSports.com, who has just been putting out fantastic work over the last year plus now, covering a multitude of games throughout Berks County, and now with the merger with the Lancaster-Lebanon League, drifting there, and there's that partnership with LancasterOnline.com, Lancaster newspapers, and getting Jeff Reinhardt's stuff involved, and this article share and picture share is just awesome, because I saw last night that one of my pictures was printed in the Lancaster Online recap of Wilson Cedar Crest. So very cool, and we thank Mike for his support. Also, the Hop family, Andy Herr, and our 6 anonymous donors. Appreciate everyone's support. And if you would like to get on board, there are multiple ways you can do that. In addition to our sponsorships, advertising, or the in-kind donations, we do encourage you to visit BulldogHour.com as often as possible for everything Bulldog Hour related, everything Wilson football related, information, and also history and heritage, as I like to call it. And I am currently working on the 1969 page, going over that one. I had done a little bit on it, but that team, or that graduating class, I should say, the class of 1970, the football team from the fall of 1969, they are finally getting around to having their 50th reunion, because of COVID years kind of pushed everything back, and they're finally getting together soon. So I'm helping flesh out that page for them so they can revisit their articles, and I uploaded all the game film that I had from 1969. So 1969 isn't the only season like that, so be sure to check out BulldogHour.com for a recap of many, many seasons in Wilson football history, and I will be getting to them whenever I find the time. But also, make sure you take Justin's advice on all our social media channels.
Yeah, like and share, and spread the word. It's also fun to hear. It's nice to hear, like after the game last night, some people come up and thank us and, do those things and tell us they like hearing this. To foreshadow, I know they were kind of saying it, with some humor there, but we got some defensive guys interviews coming up today. So like stuff like that, it's just fun. It's a lot of fun to do the show. That's why we do it. in part, because and it's also nice that it's appreciated. So like and share when you get the chance.
Yeah, two things. One, I like when our thinking coincides with our supporters and fans' thinking.
Right.
Because I was like, who haven't we talked to yet? Who haven't we gotten on the show since maybe preseason? And we wanted to talk to the four guys that we're bringing on. So we have those a little bit later after we recap Cedar Crest. And also, I mean, the Bulldog Hour kind of came about. I feel like the way our regular show, the Joe Mays and J-Rap show, came about is you and I would spend Saturdays talking about Wilson football. And I was just like, hey, remember that show from when we were at Wilson?
Right.
What if we did
Right.
that?
Right.
What if we did that? And here we are 8 years later.
We just ramped it up a little bit in terms of like, oh, now there's the highlights and those things. But
Yeah.
the conversation itself was taking place anyway.
Right.
Like,
What we would talk about on Fridays and Saturdays is now on this show, and then what we would talk about later Saturday and Sundays is on the regular show that
Right.
we do outside of Wilson football season. But you can catch us here on the Bulldog Hour next week for the 12th episode of Season 8. Our normal place and time, Sunday, October 2nd at 8:30. So yes, Justin, October right around the corner.
yeah.
And
Well, it hit me. So I like to joke about, the columns of the schedule and all that stuff. But I was like, man, this was the 5th game. This is week 5. Like we're halfway through the
we're halfway through the
guaranteed
season.
games.
Yeah.
And, and when you look at the way we have it listed with, basically all of the events, you're closing in on the halfway point of all of the events, let alone the ones you're guaranteed to get. Man, you're past that. You're past the halfway of your guaranteed events. It's wild.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Although
crazy.
I am a fan. I know some people it was a little cool last night, but I am a fan of it feeling like fall now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was amazing how it almost exactly coincided with
Yeah.
the literal
Yes.
like arrival of fall, which I think was like 9:03 Thursday
Someone
night.
flipped the switch.
So it was like, oh, it's fall, equinox. Yep. Okay, so cooler air, a little breezy. All of a sudden, the trees don't have any leaves on it. I mean, that's what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, I'll keep this. I'm good. I'm happy with this weather. I know my wife is not. I'm guessing your wife probably isn't either. Or
She was like, she woke up today. She's like, it's so cold, and I was like, I was mad because I was in bed before I forgot to open the window last night.
it's the best part.
So like, yeah.
Windows open.
Yep.
All right, so Wilson Cedar Crest Bulldogs get the victory last night, and we're not going to waste any time here because it is an odd number game week, so that means that Cam Jones gets player of the game because obviously he could be player of the game and maybe should be player of the game every week, and he's getting the nod here. No disrespect to anyone else that was up for the award, people that Justin and I talked to last night. Great games from a variety of defenders. Nick Ricona at the top.
Yeah.
We talked to him. Great game. Landon
Yeah.
Farrell, another strong game. Nick Weitzel, excellent game last night as well. Offensively, I mean, you can't overlook what Tommy was able to do last night, both with his legs and his arm, and a amazing, spectacular catch from Edison Case in the beginning of the third quarter to really stretch the lead for the Bulldogs.
Which is up for WFMZ's.
It is. Yes. The big ticket. Like, what do they call it? It's like their version of play of the week.
Yeah.
I forget what they call it off the top of my head, but go to 69news.com, WFMZ, and vote for Hunsaker to Case for their, it's not ticket takers. I can't remember
I
what.
feel like it's hot something.
Hot take?
I don't remember.
Oh, man. Well, you can go vote for our guys, and we encourage you to do so. So, Cam Jones is the guy again after his performance last night, because it was spectacular once again.
Triple hot play.
Triple hot play of the week. There you go. Cam Jones, 2 tackles on defense, but he made a name for himself on the offensive side of the ball last night. All he was able to do was rush 8 times for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as haul in 3 passes for 54 yards and a touchdown. And his receiving touchdown was electric. He made a great grab over the middle. Perfect pass by Tommy to get it to literally the only place he could grab it. He grabbed it, got hit, refused to go down, and once he spun out of the tackles, he was gone down the sideline and made a great leaping touchdown catch to hit the pylon. And
I don't want to make this sound like, oh, it should have been an easy takedown, because clearly it's not. And we've seen that the last few weeks from Cam, of like not just making guys miss, but also when they get there, it's hard to bring him down. And, but like they got him up high, tried to like swing him down to the ground, and he just spun through it.
That's
and
not
like,
going to end well for you.
No, and it didn't. And he got, what was that? That was probably right around the 30 or so.
I think it was the 35-yard touchdown.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And yeah, it was.
So probably where he caught it was about the 25 or so.
Right. But
25.
Yeah, it was a heck of a catch and run.
Yeah. So we're going to keep talking about the game, and there is a game recap, thankfully. So we're going to play that. We'll see how good it is. I saw that generally they have the scores or stats wrong, so ignore those. But let's watch some of the cool highlights. And Wilson went up 8-0 because on their first Cam Jones touchdown, Cedar Crest, I believe, lined up offsides or jumped offside,
Yes.
reduced the point try. So Wilson went for 2. They got it. You just saw Cam Jones' second touchdown there. Wilson kicked the extra point to go up 15-0, and then Cedar Crest kind of flipped the field, and the Bulldogs had to start deep inside their own territory. But on the first play after that, Cam Jones ripped off a huge run to get it to midfield. The Bulldogs became a little bit slow in the second quarter, though.
Edison's catch.
Yeah, there's Eddie's catch.
Yeah.
Amazing leaping catch. That's me taking pictures.
Yeah, you got a great one of that one.
I did. Thanks again to Willie Copeland for letting me borrow that camera body of his, because I'm not sure I would have been able to get it without it. So, but the Bulldogs didn't look great in the second quarter. Came out really strong. Went up 15-0, 2 scores early. Let Cedar Crest in it. Couldn't get anything going offensively, but did come out
Cam's.
then. Watch
Try and
this.
swing him down.
Nope, not gonna happen. And I don't think anyone really realized that everyone saw that he was engaged with a defender, thought he was going down, and that's why we always tell our kids that we coach, fly to the football. Do not give up until that whistle blows, because you never know what's going to happen. And we saw that in our game where the Cedar Crest, we played Cedar Crest as well. On a punt return, the ball bounced into his feet. No one blew a whistle, even though they told us that we couldn't advance it, which I still say is not the correct thing to say, because it wasn't muffed. It was just bumped. But play to the whistle. They're not going to flag you if they don't blow the whistle. Well, you would think they wouldn't. Hopefully they wouldn't. But that Cam Jones reception that he turns into a touchdown is a prime example. Cedar Crest defenders saw that he was engaged with one of their teammates, but instead of going to help him, just kind of eased up. And you can't do that. You cannot do that. You've got to play to the whistle. So they were the major highlights. But like I was saying, Wilson a little slow in the second quarter. Couldn't get things going. Got gashed a little bit in the running game. And I know you mentioned to me, and then immediately after the game, the one thing that Coach Doms harped on was the defensive line linebackers, especially in the red zone, standing up or getting driven backwards. Mm-hmm. And that came up on both of Cedar Crest touchdown drives, issues with tackling or losing at the line of scrimmage, which is not what you can do against good teams. And Cedar Crest hung around because they have the talent to do that. Wilson was able to put them away, and that big spark came from Hunsiker to Case with the amazing touchdown grab. And Wilson was able to add a few more scores and exclamation points to get the 36-13 win to improve to 4-1, 2-0 in LL Section 1, with a huge rivalry game against Mifflin coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, and like you said, they kind of got there, and you have the big Mifflin game hanging out over your heads. But I say that, but you heard the guys this week talk about last year Cedar Crest kind of gave them a battle up there. I won't say the game was in hand, but it wasn't that
they couldn't put it away.
Right.
They just hung around.
Right. And we talked about that with Aiden Richards last year. Like, he was one-man wrecking crew kind of for them. But they had the talent, on the field, and the intensity, or maybe the execution, that the attention to detail was there early. And I don't know. I can't say that it wasn't there, but when you are successful and drive it right down, and I don't even know that we threw a pass, those first couple, like, we just marched it right down the field.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're up 15-0, and maybe that intensity, even without thinking about it, maybe the intensity is not there. And so It was okay. They bounced back. They did what they needed to do, and they got a multiple score victory.
Right.
In the league, that's good. I left thinking higher of Cedar Crest than I probably did before the game. I was like they were battling. It was a little tough because the quarterback went out. But
right. And we do want to well wishes to Jay Huber, great quarterback, multi-year starter for them. Got injured on the first series, attempted to come back in the second half, but had to leave it once again due to the injury. So hope nothing major there, and he can come back quickly because he is a great athlete, a great player for the Falcons. Honestly, I thought Custer, the sophomore backup, played well.
I thought he played very well.
Relief.
All things considered, I thought he played very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So best of luck to Cedar Crest going forward. Wilson's able to get the victory. I'm playing the highlights again because there are some pretty good plays and passes in there.
Aren't you glad that ref didn't come down and block your view?
That's happened far too many times. It makes me so angry to miss something.
I saw
like that.
someone posting. It might have been on the Thursday night game. There was a guy, a photographer, who posted. It was like, I had a great shot of that. I thought, and
then
like
you review it.
It was like the ref was running right through his
two
thing.
things that make me frustrated when it comes to photography. One, it's when the ref gets in the way. And obviously, I'm not actually mad at them. It's just frustrating.
Right,
when
this
it
situation
happens.
is frustrating.
The other is, and it's more of a me or an equipment thing, when the focus is off. When I think I have a shot and the focus is in the background, that's so frustrating. That's just something that I get better with as I keep using it and using different cameras and lenses and whatnot. But those are two things that are really frustrating. The other thing that's really frustrating is when you have a terrible ref in group. We're not coaches on the high school team, and I don't think that they penalize anyone for saying bad things about it, but they were awful last night. So
it was.
They were bad. And I think the bold underline of that comes in the form of Cam Jones' catch that was ruled not a catch, that was so clearly a catch. My jaw was on the floor when the referee ran over and said incomplete.
Well, he didn't call it right away.
No, we were over there celebrating because it happened right in front of us, right in front of the coaches, Coach Doms, I believe Coach Palm, a bunch of the players, starters are on the sideline waiting to go in. Cam made a great catch, 2 feet down. You could see the green turf between his toes and the sideline, and they're getting ready to run the next play, and this guy comes over and rules it incomplete. I could not believe it. You know how upset Coach Fernzer was on Thursday with a few of the calls there that were much closer. They were much closer and debatable than the one last night. That I can guarantee 100% that was the wrong call.
Right. It was hard for me to. I thought he was in.
He was,
but it was hard for me to see because the players are kind of blocked. Like,
from
I can't
from
see
your
the
vantage
sideline,
point, you couldn't tell. But I was standing right there, and unfortunately, the way my lens, I don't have it.
Right.
I don't have the feet. I don't have the angle. Willie also caught a picture, but it too far. You couldn't see.
Right.
But when you were standing there, which all the coaches and players were, as well as myself, saw him. We were in awe that he made the catch. It was a great catch. It was a perfectly thrown ball again by Tommy, where only Cam could get it. He went up and got it. Got both feet down. Again, you only need one in high school. Got both feet down, and you could clearly see 1 to 2 inches of green turf before the sideline, and he ruled it incomplete.
There were a bunch of just
inexcusable,
weird things, weird things, which, yeah.
It was a poor officiated game, poorly officiated game, unfortunately.
Right.
And I know that there's, the coaching staff can put in, these are the whatever that they can, but what's that going to do?
Right.
They can't do anything about it after the fact. But it's frustrating, especially when something that's clear. It wasn't anything that's subjective, and technically penalties shouldn't be subjective, but that was a case that it was so obvious. I couldn't believe that it was missed. Right. And again, we talked about this before a lot of times in our games. Why would you ever favor an outcome that goes against the team when you don't know what happened?
Well, the thing that I fall into, I think, and I see this across sports a lot of times, and I think it's a hard thing to get out of your head in the moment, and something you have to practice and just get better at, is not calling what you think you're going to see.
Right.
The throw was where it needed to be, so that it was away from the defender. But I think in that instance, I think the official was expecting him to not come down with the catch. And
And
so,
that's-
and then he did, right.
And that's inexcusable.
Oh, absolutely. But I think a lot of times guys call what they think they're going to see, and that's
But like
yeah.
it proves to me that he was not either in proper position or was not paying attention, because
Right.
it was so obvious
Right.
if you were watching the play. I wish I had pictures of the coaches' faces
Right.
when he came down waving it incomplete.
Right.
It was just astonishment,
Like,
because it was so
5
clear.
seconds after the
There
play.
was no gray area.
Right.
It was absolutely 100% a catch. I wonder if the YouTube stream caught it because of where the camera is
Yeah, I don't
situated.
know.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, mind-boggling, really, really. Whew. But anything else about Wilson Cedar Crest Bulldogs victory?
No, I feel like they handled their business. And we've reached that halfway point though, but you're gonna need to step it up for these next 5, and hopefully more. But we're kind of getting into a spot here where we're going to have a bit of a run where there's a bunch of big games coming up, including starting this coming week.
Yep, huge game. Obviously, Wilson Mifflin. I mean, nothing should have to be said to anyone from either team. The players should be motivated to get going, especially on the Wilson side after the way Mifflin has dominated the series the last 2 years. I know that was in response to Wilson's utter destruction of the Mustangs in 2019. That game wasn't anywhere even remotely close. And then the last 2 years, Wilson Mifflin hasn't been close, but in favor of the Mustangs.
Right.
Dropping 40-plus points both years. Really, last year, I thought 2020 was going to be the rough one. Was I think 42-7.
Yeah.
Then last year was 41 or 42-14, and really Wilson didn't get those scores until late in the game.
Right.
Mifflin controlled the game once again in every facet. Wilson could not get anything going.
Well, we've talked a lot of times on this show where like the score was pretty similar, if not the same, for the Exeter and Mifflin games last year. But we had very different takeaways from those 2 games. Like in terms of the Mifflin game last year, I don't like to say it, but they were just a better team. They took it to us. Exeter, I just felt like a lot of things didn't go our way in that game. And that's the way it goes sometimes. And some of that is to credit Exeter, but I didn't have the same we got dominated feeling leaving that one. I felt like we got a bunch of bad breaks.
No, and
whereas in the Mifflin one, it had nothing to do with breaks. They just took it to us last year.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, both on and off air, that we felt, despite the score, and I know the Eagles would think otherwise.
Right.
That game was closer than the Mifflin game.
Yes.
And I would have felt better playing Exeter again than playing Mifflin again. Of course, Exeter turned that all on its head when they beat Mifflin in the district championship game.
Right.
So, phenomenal, fantastic seasons from both Exeter and Mifflin last year. Exeter's on a roll this year, but we got Mifflin coming up this week, and we're going to preview them momentarily. But first, we do want to get to our player interviews from the win against Cedar Crest last night. So here we go. We're going to hear from, let's see, we got Nick Fiorini, Nick Cracona, Brady Klein, and Edison Case. So let's take a listen. Are you ready?
I'm ready now.
All right, let's go. Oh, we've been rolling now? All right, here we are post-game after Wilson's latest victory over Cedar Crest, 36-13, joined by 4 members of the Bulldogs tonight, each with a significant contribution to the Bulldogs' victory tonight. So, guys, how's it feel to get another victory under your belt?
I think it feels great, especially to keep this momentum going into Mifflin, because we know Mifflin's a big week next week, and I know everyone here, we're excited, and hey, we want to bring that bring that trophy back. So
yeah, it feels good.
Big Dub's always a good
Obviously,
thing.
yeah.
2-0 in the league so far. We keep rolling against Mifflin. Be great. Great win.
All right, where do we start here? Eddie, let's go to you. That was a phenomenal catch you made. What were you thinking as you're running down there to get under that ball?
Well, at first I did not think that I was going to get close to it. And I just I had to readjust my route like a bunch, and I don't know how I caught it, but I think I caught it with like one hand, and like I just like I don't know, I just dove for it.
Well, when the ball was in the air, I was like, oh, that's overthrown. He's not getting there. And then it got closer and closer, and you made a phenomenal diving catch. So absolutely excellent job by you. The only one you got your hands on tonight, but you made it count for sure, but also flying around on defense with a bunch of these other guys. Nick, offensively, let's got your stats here for you. 8 for 44 yards. Nice job tonight. Did they come to you and say you were going to get the rock a little bit more this week?
They didn't really tell me much. They were just putting me with first team, just get me as much reps as I could. And then once we got here, I was in for first team O, and that's basically it. I just went in.
Other Nick, Krikona, senior. Big night tonight, 5.5 tackles for you, 2.5 for loss, pass breakup. How did it feel to be out there tonight?
It's awesome, especially it's my senior year. I get to play with some of my best friends. It's an awesome experience. I can't say how thankful I am for the opportunity. It was great being out there tonight.
Brady got a little do-over on the shovel pass. This time it went to you, and you got the score. I know Nick White was a little upset that his didn't count, but hey, you got in the end zone, contributing to this win. What did it feel like for you?
That was great. That was first touchdown of the year, and it's a pretty big spot. Now, Nick's not going to be happy about that the rest of the season, but he's on defense.
Yeah, right. Well,
He got the defensive
so
touchdown.
all the defensive coaches says you don't want the offensive touchdown. Let's get the defensive
He needs his
touchdown.
defense.
Yeah, exactly. So you run over a few guys to get in there. Excellent performance. My last question for you guys. Well, we're going to talk briefly about Mifflin, but my last question is, what is it like playing with Cam Jones and the stuff that he can do on a football field?
You want to
insane.
start? Or?
I mean,
It's insane.
It's amazing. He just breaking tackles, just finding open gaps. His patience through the holes. He's unbelievable. It really is. It's awesome playing with him, and he's a great leader too. So off the field, he's a great leader. He's a great person. He does it all.
He gets us open because they like
Everyone's
cover him.
focusing on him. Yeah.
He got like half a guy covered.
Yeah, it's amazing what he's able to do in every facet of the game, and he put on a show once again here tonight. But we know there's so many more contributors, and that's why we want to talk to as many people as possible. Last question here. Did Mifflin Week sneak into your head at all leading up to this game? And are you glad that you can put this win in the rearview mirror and focus on the Mustangs?
Yeah, I mean, I was just focused on this week. We got to get past this week first. Now we got Mifflin, so we got to come to practice strong and just get as better as we can.
And like I touched on earlier, this is great momentum leading into the week because I thought we played well tonight. Like I said, there's some mistakes that were made, but I think this is a good momentum swing to get us going into next week against Mifflin.
Yeah, we knew from the time our schedule came out, this game was going to be really important with Mifflin being the following week. Because if we win this game, it gives us a ton of momentum going into Mifflin, which we need to bring that trophy back here. It belongs here.
The Gursky-Lynn Trophy needs to be back in West Lawn, and you get that opportunity in just over a week. Gotten to play on Saturday over in Shillington. So, guys, congratulations on the victory, and good luck next week at Mifflin.
Thank you.
All right. So we thanked our 4 players for joining us. I believe, guys, that first time we got to talk to them after the game. I think all 4 of them this year.
I think so. We get to that point where I start to lose
I know I
track
start to
of who
forget,
we
but we're glad to talk to the 4 of them. There's always like a large list. I'm like, oh, well, let's talk to them. And those 4 jumped into my mind, so we rolled with it. And I think they're good. They were good as a group. That was a good group interview.
Yeah.
So they each got to perform offense, defense, and obviously we didn't talk to Cam this time, but I wanted to ask them a question about him.
Right, but I do know Paul talked to him, so you can head
Yes.
over to Paul's site and check that out.
Yeah,
too.
excellent point. BurkeSportsReport.com. Check out Paul Roberts' interview with Cam Jones, and you can hear what Cam had to say about the Cedar Crest game and the upcoming Mifflin game. Speaking of Mifflin, one person they don't have this year is a guy by the name of Nick Singleton. You may have heard of him.
Yeah,
We're
and-
watching him right now
right
on my phone.
You said it. Last year, and I said it last year that once he's moves on from Mifflin,
Once Wilson Mifflin ended last year,
right.
I was
Hey,
happy to
great.
go and
Keep
do
it
what,
going,
yeah,
bud.
become the best running back in the nation, the best recruit in the nation, which he did.
Right.
And then prove it at our favorite collegiate team at Penn State, which he's doing. So it's all good here with one Mr. Nick Singleton.
Yeah.
But there's some unfinished business in the Mifflin-Wilson rivalry that the Bulldogs, especially the seniors, need to take care of this week. They haven't beaten Mifflin yet. And Coach Dom said last night, they've been embarrassed by their top rival the last 2 seasons. I know they wanted to have the chance to go out on top at home, but they'll take the chance no matter where it's played, which will be this coming Saturday, October 1st at 1 o'clock in Shillington for the Mustangs' homecoming festivities. But, I mean, Wilson Mifflin, you should know by now. When I do the stats here, the Wilson stats book always includes the games against Shillington High School too. So you may see some stats this week from the likes of Mike Drago and Paul Roberts that list things differently, but I don't believe they include those Shillington games, which is essentially the same school. So we're going to keep them together, which means that this is the Wilson Mifflin 74th meeting between the high schools. Wilson has a lead 43-30, but Mifflin has won the last 2 in the series, most recently last year on September 3rd in Shillington, 42-14. The Bulldogs' last win coming also in Shillington on August 30th, 2019, 61-14. And that was a heck of a game, a heck of a show by Wilson. But it's all been downhill for the Bulldogs in this series since. Jeff Lang is the Mifflin head coach in his 6th season. Last year, Governor Mifflin was 10-1, was their only loss in the District 3 5A championship game to Exeter, which is still a jaw-dropping, mind-blowing defeat by Mifflin. I still can't get over what Exeter was able to do last year because just a few weeks prior, Mifflin took it to them.
Yeah.
And Exeter rebounded in a way when it mattered. You know, we always talk about streaks and undefeated regular seasons and things like that. But in the end, what you want is that hardware and those medals. And Exeter is the one that got it last year after shocking everyone across the state by upsetting Mifflin.
Yeah, it was, yes, a very surprising outcome.
So the Mustangs reeling a little bit this year. They're struggling some after losing so many talented contributors. Many were key roles in that offense and defense, not just Nick Singleton. But Mifflin did win last night, a big win against Muhlenberg for their 2nd victory this year. But they are just sitting at 2-3. And I know Coach Doms said last night, started to preach about the record doesn't matter when it's your rival. And when this game is talked up so much, it does not matter. So you have to take care of business. And it doesn't matter that Mifflin is maybe struggling a little more this year than they have in years past. They're sitting at 2-3.
Well, they're going to be ready.
No, they'll be very ready. Homecoming at home. They want to prove the doubters wrong. People think Wilson's going to come in and beat them. They want to prove that that's not the case. So Mifflin started the season with a close loss to Springford, 21-10. Springford having a pretty decent year as well. You know, former Wilson coach Brubaker down there. They went to Carlisle and got beat up pretty good, 48-14, before rebounding with a victory at Boyertown, 17-14, but lost again to Exeter last week at home, 36-6, but got right last night at Muhlenberg, 42-8. So yeah, Mifflin's sitting at 2-3 with the Bulldogs coming to town this week. Their key guys back this year or playing significant time for them are Aiden Martin, Gerald McNeil, Delson McNeil, the quarterback, Michael Ford, and Braden Reese is the go-to guy in the backfield. Senior fullback is leading the way. So we know what we're getting from Mifflin. It's nothing new. Nothing has changed. They're going to try to run that option, that veer. They're going to want to pound it down your throat. And the defensive linebackers are going to have to stay low and play strong.
Be disciplined.
And disciplined.
Yep.
And that's going to be key.
Do your
for
job.
Wilson to win.
Don't try to do something crazy. Don't, we've talked about players, especially the seniors, they've had it taken to them by Mifflin the last couple years. You can't get that all back in one play. Don't try to be a hero. Just do what you're supposed to do on any given play, and it will take care of itself. But if you go try, take out frustrations or those things, that just gets your head in a spot where you sometimes don't do what you're supposed to do, and that's when, especially that offense, can come and get you. Like, just take care of your job.
Yeah, do your job. So we talked about Wilson's schedule the rest of the way being very meaningful, very, very tough. But Mifflin, because of their struggles at the beginning of the season, they're fighting for playoff positioning right now, and just the ability to make the playoffs. And they've got a difficult road ahead of them.
Yeah.
Wilson's coming to town this week. Then they got to go to Conestoga Valley. They do get to host Lebanon, who is not very strong again this year. But then they have back-to-back games against Manheim Central and Warwick.
Right.
Now, at 2 and 3, you got to think they need to win 4 out of 5 probably to get in. Maybe 3 of 5 could get them in, but they've got a definite uphill challenge, a big battle in front of them these final 5 weeks. Losing some of these games earlier put them again in the corner for sure. But we'll see what happens with Governor Mifflin. I mentioned senior Braden Reese is leading the team in rushing. He's actually over 100 yards per game, 102.7. Delson McNeil remains the dynamic quarterback, running that option, that veer offense that we're so used to knowing. The one guy you want to pay attention to on defense is Brandon Jones, the linebacker number 11. He's averaging 13 tackles a game.
Oh my gosh.
And then I mentioned Michael Ford, the sophomore two-way lineman on defense. He's averaging 12 tackles a game. So, there's some solid players on that Mifflin team that the players, coaches obviously know, but we want the fans to be aware of too. Mostly still a rushing offense. They have been going up in the air a little bit more than probably many are used to, just because they've been playing from behind in games that have gotten out of hand. But still a lot of strong and talented players on this team. They played a tough schedule. Springford, very good again this year. Carlisle is having a great season. Springford's only losses are to Cumberland Valley and Manheim Township, and we've been talking about those two teams all off season and all regular season so far. And Carlisle's only 2 losses: York, William Penn, and Harrisburg.
Right.
So these aren't teams that they're dropping just because they're not shocking losses. They're losses to good teams. I mean, it doesn't make you feel any better because you got to win the games to make the playoffs and keep your season going. But do not let a 2 and 3 record make anyone on the team or in the community think that this is a game in which Wilson can just walk in there and win without putting out forth much effort.
Absolutely not.
So, Justin, you have anything else to say about our rivals, the
No, you
Mustangs?
pretty much summed it up. Like, it's a rivalry game. They're going to be ready to go. You need to be ready to match that. We're on the road for the second straight time. They're going to defend their home turf. It's homecoming, Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Very different atmosphere. So be ready to go. And like I said, don't try to do too much. Just do what you're supposed to do. Do your job. And if everybody does that,
it should be okay.
Right. If everybody does it, it should be okay. And if it's not, well, then what were you going to do anyway? Like, if you give it your best and you do what you're supposed to do, that literally all you can ask for. So we'll have to kind of see how that goes. But
yeah, I mean, overall, I think honestly, if you said we got to the halfway point and we're 4-1 before the season, I think most people will be pretty happy about that.
Oh yeah,
knowing the difficulties of the non-league slate and some unknowns out there. I mean, obviously Roman Catholic kind of was what we thought they would be. I believe last I knew they were still undefeated. I don't know what happened in their game last night, or maybe they played today, but Roman Catholic, very good. Better than they were last year. With the talent on that team, they should be making some noise down there in District 12. Got the win at Central Dauphin, who, again, that's another team. You can't look at the schedule. If you're an outsider and you look at their standings, their record right now, which I believe is 1-4.
How did they do last night?
I'm trying to think who they played last night. I should pull that up.
I don't remember who
But
they played last night.
They've been a tough out for everyone, including Coatesville, who we scrimmaged, and we knew Coatesville looked really good. Central Dauphin lost by a score to Coatesville. So you cannot underrate teams just based on There's because everyone's schedule is so different. I mean,
Right.
how many years have we seen teams from another district go 9-1 or 10-0, but get blown out in the first round of the playoffs? Because the teams you play matter, and that's generally why Wilson wants to stack
Well,
some of these big time teams up
and
front in the non-league.
some of the games that we played in our strength of schedule has helped us in those district rankings the last few years. Even last year, where the record wasn't exactly where you'd want it to be, but we were able to get in, in that spot. Or a few years ago when we lost to Manheim Township, but we were still took the number 1 overall seed.
Right. Yeah, they were not happy about that.
No, and having that strength of schedule be so tough is, yes, it's brutal. Like on the opening night when things aren't going the way you would like them to go, or when you follow that up with a trip to Harrisburg to play Central Dauphin, like. Yeah, sometimes we get asked all the time. We've talked about it on the show. Why do you schedule these games? Well, it's to get better, because we're not playing for those August nights. We're playing for those October and November nights. And so,
Yeah. And I think the only thing that gives coaching staff and administration pause is it ends up taking up such a physical toll that you lose usually a player or two to,
right.
For at least a week or two, sometimes even for more than that. And that can happen in the preseason scrimmage too. As we saw, Wilson Parkland always was very vicious.
Right.
We've lost players for a few games because of how hard that scrimmage is. But yeah, I'm looking at Central Dauphin, and yeah, they are 1-4. They lost last night to State College, who's another great mid-pen. And mid-pen is stacked once again. State College is undefeated. They are 5-0 and are making noise. We don't have to deal with them in the district playoffs. That would be a much farther in the future problem, and it's a good problem to have if you're playing State College in November. But Central Dauphin, they got a tough schedule to go. Carlisle, Cumberland Valley, Altoona, CD East, and Harrisburg. Yeah, Central Dauphin finishes with Harrisburg at Harrisburg on Saturday, October 29th, which is the day after Wilson Manheim Township in Neffsville.
Right.
So again, we won't know what's going on with the playoffs until later Saturday or into Sunday. Right. I keep saying this, but I do need to pull up my power ratings file and start updating this so that I can start predicting things, because we're about 2 weeks away from that really starting to matter.
Yeah.
At least the projections. Obviously, every game matters, but in order to predict what's going to happen or look ahead at what may happen, we need more games to be played. So I would say after 7 games have been played, probably after the Hempfield game on October 7th, that week leading up to the Penn Manor game is when I can start looking and say, all right, if these things happen, this is about where I think Wilson will land. And we'll also, one of the biggest games, 2 big games we'll have past us, Mifflin and Hempfield, which are very important to what happens with our power rating and our final standing as the playoffs approach. But Wilson 4-1, win over Cedar Crest at Mifflin on Saturday. I guess by and large, you're looking at the next win whenever it comes should assure the team of a additional year in the non-losing season streak, which dates back to 1964. So this would be what, 50? Is that 58, 59? I think this would be 59. So this would be the next win should give Wilson a 59th straight non-losing season. 2 more wins should assure a 47th straight winning season. The last non-losing season, last year the team was 5-5, I believe was 1975, I want to say, off the top of my head. So yeah, all those are right in front of the team. 1 or 2 more wins, and you are sure that this squad isn't responsible for breaking either of those streaks. And Wilson's streak, I believe, is one of, if not the longest in the state. Maybe in both ways, however you slice it.
Yeah.
So, all right, I think that's about it here. We're going to get going here on this Saturday matinee edition of the Bulldog Hour. Appreciate everyone joining in live or joining us after the fact. Again, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe, rate, and review the Bulldog Hour everywhere you can. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have the Joe Mays and JRF show on Twitch. That's where we stream this on Twitch if you watch on there. Check out Wilson Bulldogs football on youtube.com. Please subscribe there. We're up to like 380 some subscribers. Would love to hit 400 or 500 this year. I think the more subscribers we get, the more ability to offer other things up there, especially like simpler, quick and easy and cheap ways to support the show. We can do like dollar subscriptions if you're into that kind of thing, but we need the subscribers to do it. So I think we need to get to 1,000. So we're not even halfway there. So if you have a Google YouTube account, please subscribe to us, Wilson Bulldogs Football on YouTube. And again, like, follow, subscribe, rate and review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, everything. We're everywhere. You can find us. But if you do have any requests from us, or you need any information or help, or just want to hear us talk about something, just let us know. WilsonBulldogsFootball@gmail.com. But Justin, thanks for coming over this afternoon to do the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we will be back next Sunday, October 2nd at our normal time, 8:30 p.m. again on all these places. So until next time, I'm Joe Mays for Justin Raffoff and the Bulldog Hour. We will see you in a week. But until then, remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.